Alexander Graham Bell grew up in a world filled with the magic of sound and the quiet of silence. His father, Alexander Melville Bell, was a famous teacher who studied how people speak. He even created a special system called visible speech. This was a set of written symbols that showed how to make any sound with your mouth, tongue, and lips. It was a guide to speaking for people who could not hear. Young Alexander, or Alec as his family called him, learned this system and became very good at understanding the science of speech. He could look at the symbols and know exactly how to make the sound, which was a very special skill. Bell's personal life was also deeply connected to sound in a different way. His mother, Eliza Grace Simons Bell, was nearly deaf. To speak with her, Alec would press his lips against her forehead and speak in a low, clear voice. She could feel the vibrations of his words. This taught him a powerful lesson. Sound was not just something you heard with your ears, it was also a physical vibration, a movement that could travel through things. This idea stayed with him. His wife, Mabel Hubbard, would also be deaf. This close connection to people who could not hear made Bell passionate about communication and finding new ways to help people connect with one another. This unique family background gave Bell a special way of thinking. He was not just an inventor trying to build a machine. He was a son and a future husband who understood the deep human need to communicate. His father's work taught him the mechanics of speech, while his mother's deafness showed him the physical nature of sound. He learned that every word we say creates a specific pattern of vibrations in the air. This knowledge was like a secret key. It would later help him unlock the puzzle of sending a human voice through a metal wire, a challenge that many other inventors were trying to solve at the time. So when Bell started his own career, he followed in his father's footsteps. He became a teacher for the deaf, using visible speech to help his students learn to speak more clearly. He spent his days teaching and his nights experimenting. He was fascinated by electricity and how it could be used to send messages. He saw a connection between the vibrations of sound and the flow of an electric current. He dreamed of a machine that could turn the vibrations of a person's voice into electricity, send it across a long distance, and then turn it back into sound again. This dream would soon lead him on an incredible journey of discovery. Before the telephone, there was the telegraph. The telegraph was a fantastic invention that sent messages using a special code of dots and dashes called Morse code. An operator would tap a key, sending short and long bursts of electricity through a wire. Another operator far away would listen to the clicks and write down the message. But the telegraph had a big limitation. It could only send one message at a time on a single wire. With more and more people wanting to send telegrams, the wires were getting very busy. Companies were desperate for a way to send multiple messages at once to save money and time. This problem led inventors to work on something called the harmonic telegraph. The idea was clever. It was based on the fact that different musical notes have different frequencies, or pitches. The plan was to send several messages over the same wire simultaneously, with each message carried by a different musical tone. Imagine sending a message using the note C, and another one using the note G at the very same time. A special receiver at the other end would be tuned to listen for only one of those notes. Bell was fascinated by this challenge and believed he could build a successful harmonic telegraph. He and his skilled assistant, Thomas Watson, spent countless hours trying to make it work. Bell and Watson set up their workshop in Boston. One part of their device was a transmitter which had a set of metal reeds that would vibrate when an electric current passed through them. The other part was a receiver with matching reeds. The idea was that if you made a reed tuned to a specific note vibrate on the transmitter side, only the reed with the exact same tuning would vibrate on the receiver side. But getting all the reeds perfectly tuned was extremely difficult. They would often get stuck or not vibrate correctly, which was very frustrating for Bell and Watson. They worked day after day, trying to fix the problem, not knowing they were on the verge of a much bigger discovery. On a hot afternoon, June 2, 1875, something amazing happened. Watson was in one room, trying to free a metal reed on the transmitter that had gotten stuck. He plucked it with his finger to get it moving. In the other room, Bell was listening intently at the receiver. Suddenly he heard a sound come through the wire. It was not just a click or a buzz, it was a rich musical sound, the twang of the reed Watson had plucked. Bell realized that the vibrating reed had created a continuous electrical current that changed its strength just like the sound wave of the twang. This was the secret. It proved that a complex sound, not just a simple on-off click, could be turned into electricity and sent through a wire. The accidental twang changed everything. Bell immediately understood its importance. The telegraph sent simple on-off signals, but the sound of the plucked reed had created a continuous flowing current that mirrored the sound's vibration. This was called an undulating current. Bell knew that the human voice was also just a complex set of vibrations in the air. If a simple reed could create an electrical copy of its sound, then perhaps the vibrations of a human voice could do the same thing. He rushed to Watson's room, full of excitement, and explained his new idea. They would abandon the harmonic telegraph and focus on a new machine, one that could transmit speech. Over the next few months, Bell and Watson worked tirelessly to build a device that could capture the vibrations of a voice. They needed a transmitter that could turn sound waves into an undulating electric current, and a receiver that could turn that current back into sound waves. For the transmitter, Bell designed a device with a diaphragm, which is a thin, flexible membrane much like an eardrum. When someone spoke into it, the diaphragm would vibrate. Attached to the diaphragm was a small needle, which dipped into a tiny cup of acidic water. As the diaphragm vibrated, the needle would move up and down in the water, changing the amount of electricity that could flow through it, creating that all-important undulating current. The receiver was designed to do the opposite job. It would take the incoming electrical signal and turn it back into audible sound. The first receivers were simple electromagnetic devices. The changing electric current would flow into a coil of wire wrapped around an iron core, which would cause a thin iron diaphragm to vibrate. These vibrations would recreate the original sound waves in the air, allowing the person at the receiving end to hear the words that were spoken. Building these first prototypes was a slow and careful process. Every piece had to be just right, and they tested many different designs before they found one that they believed would work. The historic moment came on March 10, 1876. Bell and Watson were in separate rooms in their boarding house, connected by a wire running between them. Bell had the transmitter, and Watson had the receiver. An accident happened when Bell spilled some of the acidic water from the transmitter onto his clothes. He called out into the mouthpiece, not for an experiment, but for real help. He said the now famous words, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you." In the other room, Watson was stunned. He heard Bell's voice, not as a code but as clear words, coming from the receiver. He ran to Bell's room, shouting with excitement. It had worked. The telephone was born. Even before that first successful call, Alexander Graham Bell knew he had a groundbreaking invention. He had filed a patent application for his idea of transmitting the voice electrically just a few weeks earlier, on February 14, 1876. A patent is a legal document from the government that gives an inventor the exclusive right to make, use and sell their invention for a certain number of years. It protects their idea from being copied by others. Bell's patent, U.S. Patent number 174,465, was granted on March 7, 1876, just 3 days before his famous call to Watson. It is now considered one of the most valuable patents in history. With the patent secured and a working telephone in hand, Bell's next step was to show the world what he had created. Later that year, he demonstrated his invention at the Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia, a huge fair celebrating America's 100th birthday. At first, not many people paid attention to his small display. But then, Dom Pedro II, the Emperor of Brazil, visited his booth. Bell had the Emperor listen to the receiver while he went to the other end of the room and recited a line from Shakespeare into the transmitter. The Emperor was amazed. He dropped the receiver and exclaimed, "My God, it talks!" This dramatic demonstration made the telephone an overnight sensation. To turn his invention into a business, Bell, along with his financial backers Gardner Hubbard and Thomas Sanders, formed the Bell Telephone Company in 1877. This was the beginning of what would become a massive industry. At first, they had to convince people that they needed a telephone. They rented out telephones in pairs to businesses so they could talk between their offices and warehouses. The network grew slowly at first, but as more people got telephones, the more useful the invention became. Soon, telephone exchanges were built in cities, allowing any subscriber to be connected to any other subscriber, creating a true communication network. Alexander Graham Bell's journey from a teacher of the deaf to a world-famous inventor was possible because of his unique combination of skills and experiences. His deep understanding of sound and speech, learned from his family, gave him the scientific foundation. His tireless curiosity and persistence, shared with his assistant Thomas Watson, helped him overcome countless technical challenges. From the early work on the harmonic telegraph to the lucky twang and the final creation of a working device, Bell's story is a powerful reminder that great inventions often come from a blend of knowledge, hard work, and a little bit of happy accident. His invention truly changed the world, shrinking distances and connecting people like never before.
So hit that subscribe and ring that bell too, for history's wonders waiting for you. Billy at Works, let the knowledge ignite, exploring the past with all of